I had to rely on God because and my faith. I knew that if he wanted to take him, that he would have. I have made it my mission to help those women recognize that they don't have to live in the identity of their husband's brain injury. Everyone needs to be able to process every emotion that you go through. So having a good cry is good for anyone.
Welcome back to Success in Mind, the show where we talk about mindset, motivation, and making it through the hard parts of entrepreneurship and life. Today's episode is deeply personal, incredibly inspiring, and one that I know will stay with you. My guest today is Erika Brouillette, caregiver, advocate, mom of 4, grandma of 2, and a woman who turned unimaginable personal tragedy into purpose. In 2020, Erika's husband suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, and everything in her world changed overnight. But instead of staying stuck in grief, she did something extraordinary. She chose to reclaim her identity and help other women to do the same. Erika is now the host of Real Lives of TBI Wives podcast and has created a supportive space for women navigating life after trauma. And a fun fact, she launched her show after taking my 5-day Launch Your Podcast challenge. So I have had the honor of witnessing her growth close up. You are in for a powerful conversation today about rebuilding self-worth. And Erika's going to share how she found hope in the hardest times. So whether you're an entrepreneur facing burnout or someone who's suffering from a loss or just needing a reminder that you are allowed to evolve, this episode is for you. Let's dive in. So Erika, I want to start at the very beginning. Take us back to 2020 and what happened in your life at that point.
Well, it was October 11th. We woke up getting ready for church and Sunday school. And as we were leaving, realized that my husband's car was not outside. And we went to church, came back. Daddy still wasn't home. We had called and texted and left messages, and we're still not able to get a hold of him. Went throughout our day trying to be normal, but thinking that there was something off. And our oldest son was 10 at the time, and he had mentioned to find my iPhone with Daddy's iPhone. And we pinged it, found out that it was about 20 minutes away, and we were about to get in the car and see where Daddy was, and the phone rang. And it was Swedish Hospital down the road, and they said, Mrs. Brouillette, I think we have your husband here. Things aren't good.
Wow.
He's already undergone emergency brain surgery, and we need you to come down here and identify him. And at that moment, our lives changed. We spent the next 6 months in the hospital, literally just me and him. It was the midst of COVID, and so our sons were not able to be in the hospital with him. I was only able to be there from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. because COVID came out at night.
Right.
And the first few days, we didn't know from minute to minute what was going to happen. I had to call his mom in Thailand and have her fly back to make sure that she was with him in case things didn't go well. We had to call his oldest son and tell him that news.
Wow.
So the entire, from the first moment that I started talking to the nurses and the doctors there, I knew that God had a purpose for me in all of this. And that was to help other people. I was told so many times that there's not a handbook for what my husband was going through. He had a severe traumatic brain injury and was in a coma for almost 3 months. And so there wasn't much hope for him. But there also wasn't what's going to happen next. We were told day in and day out that there wasn't a handbook. Every TBI is different, and we just don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. So I've kind of made it my mission to do that for other people.
Okay. So can you share with us a little bit about what caused his TBI? Like what?
Yeah.
Was it an accident?
So he was in a car accident. It was one car. He ran into a building. I don't know many of the other details because I needed to put my energy into where it needed to be in saving my husband's life, being there to be his advocate. And so that's all the details that I know is he in his vehicle ran into a building.
Okay.
I can only assume it was at a fast speed because he liked to drive fast.
Okay. And so how did you cope in the early days? Like you were talking about how there's no handbook. Everything is different. What got you through that? I mean, there would have been so much uncertainty for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you cope?
So much uncertainty and so much isolation. Only had
Mm,
he was in the ICU for 3 weeks. And in that time, it was just, the one nurse on duty and the few doctors that would come in and out. And I was asking them every single question. I feel like now I'm a medical expert
yeah.
because I needed to know all of the things. But I had to rely on God, because, and my faith,
hmm
because I knew that he could work miracles. I knew that if he wanted to take him, that he would have. And so he had me there to
Right.
advocate for him, to get him to the right places, to have the right people in his circle to help heal him.
Okay. Before this happened, what was your life like? And then how did it change? How has it changed from that
Our
point
life was
on?
crazy. We have 4 boys. He has one from a previous relationship, and then we have 3 together. At that time, they
hmm
were 20, 10, 4, and 2. And so we were very busy.
Wow.
Our boys love sports and we love music. So we did lots of music festivals. He he was the one who worked. I stayed home with the boys.
hmm
And we were just very involved in all of the boys' things and lots of music. So life has changed drastically. I am now his caregiver. We also have a full-time caregiver in our house. He is nonverbal. He is fed through a G tube. He is in a wheelchair, and I put quotes up and paralyzed on his right side because he's starting to have movement on that side.
Wow.
Our kids are still very, very busy, which just means that I have to be more organized
Yeah.
because I am in charge of all of his scheduling for his doctor's appointments and his therapies and advocating for those. I feel like
hmm
being in the Medicaid system, I know your guys' system is a lot different. I've talked to some wives up there in Canada,
Yeah.
and it's a lot different. But just being able to continue with his care through his insurances and advocate for that is a full-time job. Just last week, he and his
I
caregiver were
bet.
at a therapy at the clinic 40 minutes away from our house, and their transportation didn't show up. And so my life had to stop right there. I had to call the state because I didn't know
Yeah.
who the transportation was, and they had to call their driver, and just a round rigmarole that took over 2 hours, and I ended up
Yeah.
having to call them and pay for a lift because that driver was over an hour and a half late, and it was 95 degrees outside. The clinic was closed. They were sitting outside waiting. So I always say that my life is on a constant
Wow.
pivot, not knowing what
hmm
curveball is going to get thrown at us that day. So I've really had to teach
Yeah.
the boys, and sometimes it's not easy. But I'm sorry,
hmm
sometimes our plans have to change because of something that we wouldn't think would happen. He gets a hole in his G tube. That's the only way he gets his nutrition and he gets his medicine. And so if that's not working
hmm
correctly, we have to go sit in the emergency room and get that exchanged for him. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Now, one of the biggest things that comes up with trauma is a loss of identity or a change of identity. How did your
Yeah.
identity shift through this?
No matter how hard I fought it, his brain injury has become my identity because determines every move we make in every moment of the day. So
hmm
I have worked really hard to break free from that. About a year ago was at a really dark place, and I couldn't find the light. They're just, it becomes mundane, you become resentful. And that's not a place where I want to be.
hmm
And so in the last year, I have worked really hard to find myself again. Even before his accident, working out was always my therapy. And so I've really stepped into that. I've
hmm
taken time to meditate every day and to no matter what it takes, because it does take an act of God to be able to schedule the caregivers and the babysitters and all of the things. But I have made it a point to take that time for myself, whether it's going to get my nails done or my hair cut or going to the dentist. I didn't go to the dentist for almost 4 years because it was selfish to take care of myself. But now, after learning the hard way, I've recognized that those things are really important and that I have to take care of myself so that I can take care of everyone else that needs to be the best that I can.
Yeah. So when you say that you learned that the hard way, what were those
Well,
lessons?
I had to have a lot of dental work last year.
Mm.
I spent 3 months in physical therapy because I am very
Wow.
stubborn and we have a lot going on. So sometimes the way I do things in caring for him are not the best for my body. It's just the fastest way to do them. And so
Oh,
I had to slow down and relearn those and take the time to PT myself back to health. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. So, what would you say to other women who are listening to this and are maybe they're in that place where they're not taking care of themselves, and maybe they feel guilt or shame about prioritizing their own needs and their own health? What would
Well,
you
I
say
totally get
to
it.
those women listening?
I've been there and um, it's so much, I can't say easier, but it is better for everyone for you to be proactive in caring for yourself than it is to spend a week in the hospital worrying about how everyone else is being cared for. Whether it's taking a 5-minute walk outside or sitting down and petting your dog or going to get your nails done or a girls' weekend, it's super
Mhm.
important to pour into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, over this past year that you have been finding yourself again, reclaiming your identity, what were some of those steps that you took to come out of that dark place you were in to where you are today?
The first one is accepting help. Uh, when we took
Nice.
Shelby home
Yeah.
from the hospital, I couldn't imagine people just doing those intimate cares that he needed. And so I wanted to take them all myself. I was like, I'm his wife. I'm the person who has to do that. That's a lot, especially when you've got the 3 little boys at home. And so
Mhm.
we worked to now I have over full-time help here and just allowing that time
Nice.
to be able to take care of myself and to be present for our sons is one really big thing. Taking that time to work out, I think that lifting heavy things is my purpose in life. I joked about that before his accident that exercise was my therapy, but it really truly does get my mind right. So getting up earlier before everyone else does so that I have time to just pour into myself in doing my devotionals and meditation and getting
Mhm.
that workout in and walking the dog is, I mean, that's a couple of hours, but it took a while for me to work that up to that. But that was a really big step. Giving myself grace, guilt, and shame it's real. And so recognizing
Mhm.
that I'm doing the best with what I have is another important lesson for yourself. I was always one of those people who who never wanted to go back to college, was okay with where I was, but now I've
Mhm.
recognized that I have so much growth to have and that there are so many people for me to help. So I have poured into myself by learning. I learned how to podcast with you. Learned
Yeah.
how to support other people. And so
Mhm.
I just know that there are so many women who were in the same place as I was a year ago, 5 years ago. And
Mhm.
I have made it my mission to help those women recognize that they don't have to live in the identity of their husband's brain injury. That if photography was their passion before his accident, that she can get back into that and she can enjoy that and she doesn't have to feel guilty about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So at what point did you realize that you could help other women going through the same thing? At what point did you shift from, learning how to take care of yourself again to now I can
Well, I
support
think I
other
realized that
people.
really early on in his accident. I have always been a
Hmm.
networker and a connector and a helper. And so even sitting at his therapies,
Yeah.
I was like, man, I have got to help people that don't have the help or the that don't have the fight in them that I did. That aren't
Mm.
the bull in the china cabinet demanding that something gets done. uh, that they have someone in their corner that is willing to help them and walk beside them. I had one of the parents on my son's baseball team a couple of years ago had taken me aside and asked me just questions about my husband and what happened to him and how much she admired me because I take him to all of the baseball games and I try to make life as normal as it can be for
Hmm.
everyone, not just him, but for our boys that they have their dad there supporting them. And
Yeah.
she had shared with me that a family member was laying in bed at home, had a stroke, and that family member never gets out of bed. They can't access services. And that right there was, I guess that was the sign that I needed to know that people need this. People need help. People need to know what they don't know.
Hmm.
They need to have access like we do that I fought
Yeah.
for. And so that's what I'm here to do is help women do that.
Okay. And from that, you now have a community.
Yeah, so I started a community to help TBI wives reclaim their lives. It's called Reclaim. And in there, we have just a lot of great resources, a forum where we can just be real with each other who get it. I know that. At least for me, I had so many friends
Hmm.
and family that wanted to support me. Although I took that support, they just didn't get what I was going through. They didn't get the day to day issues that we run into or just how life is. And so to have that community of women who truly get it,
Yeah.
I have lots
Hmm.
of meditation in there that I have recorded for them to help with just getting yourself back in the moment if you're having a struggle day. A workbook to help prioritize yourself without shame or guilt. I know that that's a lot of what I keep coming back to is shame and guilt, but it's a true feeling that women in my shoes feel every single day, that anything that they're doing for themselves that they should feel guilt or shameful for, and that's just not a good feeling to have.
Absolutely. So when you're having one of those hard days, because I'm sure there are many days that are harder than other days, what gets you through? What do you do?
Just go in the other room and cry. I had one of those moments yesterday. And this is your permission to do that because I know in our society, that's a, people think that that's a sign of weakness. But I think that everyone needs to be able to process every emotion that you go
Mhm.
through. So having a good cry is good for anyone. But
Yeah.
just going and sitting out on the patio, just being is a big one for me. Going for a walk, a lot of outside stuff for me.
Hmm.
But finding that thing that does it for you. I mean, each one of my
Yeah.
sons does something different. I have one that goes in the back and he'll kick the soccer ball around. I have another one that goes and works on the motorcycles in the shed. And I have another one who likes to go and swing. So, however you process that, just
Yeah.
find what works for you.
Okay. So I want to shift gears entirely and ask you about your podcast because I think that that's also such a great resource that you're providing for women who are walking the same path as you. So you are the host of Real Lives of TBI Wives. And you launched that podcast recently through my 5-day Launch Your Podcast Challenge. Can you share what that journey was like
Yeah,
for
I
you in
did.
sharing your message and getting your
I would
voice
have
out there?
never expected that I would have a podcast, but I'm having so much fun. So, I joined your not really knowing what exactly I was going to do, but I think day one, it became so clear. You make it so easy to just go from start to finish
Thank
and
you.
be confident. So thank you for that. You made it seamless. So this first season I started in April and I have been interviewing other TBI wives. And
Hmm.
I just love that it's a space for women to tell their story beyond their husband's tragedy. So, like I mentioned a couple of times, it's very easy to just become his injury, become his caregiver, his provider, his advocate. So I want to provide that space for women to be able to share their story, how they got through it, how their community was there for them, what they're doing for self-care, and also helping them recognize what they have gone through. They're having to share their husband's story because that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
But just really getting back to them and recognizing them. So I think it's been really beautiful. It has definitely grown me in places that I would have never expected. That first week, I was torn inside out. I really recognized that I'm an empath, and I took on every single one of those women's stories. And so I recognized that I can't do interviews every day. I have to just take a couple of days a week and really be in the right mindset to be able to process and edit those, to be able to honor the women and their stories and honor myself as well. Like we were talking about taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Even through that, I recognized I had to take a step back and do.
Absolutely. What was that like for you the first time you took that leap and you hit record?
It was nerve-wracking. And I didn't think that I needed to have not show notes. I didn't think I needed to have pre-interview questions, and I was just going to fly by the seat of my pants. And after those first 3 interviews, I think I sat back down and I went through and I created interview questions, and things have gone really well. But I do know that God placed the right people in those first few interviews, that they did so well, and the flow went great, and their stories were amazing, and they're still impacting other women and other people.
Yeah.
So
nice. Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say to someone who's thinking about starting a podcast but hasn't taken the leap?
just keep it simple and just do it. Like I'm in a couple of podcast Facebook groups, and people ask that every day. And like Teri says, grab a microphone and some headphones and just go. You can edit it. You can edit anything, and it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you have a link that you sent me.
Yeah. So I want to invite you or your guests to the reallivesbonus.com. It's a place where I can share just how I was able, or how I can help you shrink that time, because I've gone through it and I have acquired so many tools and resources to help with navigating through the time after trauma. And so just hop on that website, and I'd love to connect with you.
Perfect. So that will be in the show notes as well. And now I also want to ask you, if you don't mind, I want to ask you about your faith, because you've mentioned that several times of how important that has been to you. And I'm curious to know, how has this changed your faith at all from before and after? Has it strengthened it? Has it challenged it? What has that been like for you?
Definitely challenged. I think when anyone goes through tragedy or some very large life event, they're going to question God. They're going to question, why me, or why this? And so, yes, it has challenged.
Yeah.
But I think that it has grown my faith in... I grew up in the church ever since I was born, and I think I had a very lukewarm faith. But within the hospital during COVID, when it was just the two of us, there was a lot of time to just sit and listen. And I often say that I never shut up long enough to hear God's voice. Sitting in the silence for so long, I did. I was able to and listen.
And so when you were in that space and you're now able to listen and hear God, what came to you?
Well, I don't know if it was something coming to me, but just recognizing we had to have a lot of hard conversations in the hospital, and especially those first couple of days. That's when I started asking the questions. And so one of those was, Shelby, if we keep going, we need to put a new trach in because they had trached him at the accident site. If we're not going to keep going, we're not going to do that. So do you want to continue? Do you want to continue care for him? And so I just kept asking the questions of, if all of his organs are working, what are you going to do? Like usually they would just like turn off his ventilator, right? But he was breathing on his own. So they were going to starve him to death.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so if all of his organs are working, God's telling me we're not going to starve him. We're going to keep him going. Then I had,
yeah, that sounds horrific. Like that just, and being in that situation of being presented with that decision.
I'm going to get on my soapbox. So Shelby and I are young. He'll be 50 this year. I'm 43. And we never talked about having a will. Well, we did, but it was like, we're too young. Nothing's going to happen to us. And so we didn't have one. Even though I was his wife, I had zero say in that hospital because we didn't have a will. So I was blessed with a friend who's an attorney, and that's his thing. And so he helped me with becoming my husband's guardian and conservator. And so that's a whole other ballgame. So now I don't sign documents as wife, I sign them as his guardian. So if you don't have your will, call your attorney today and get a will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such good advice for anyone listening.
Don't be like
Get your stuff in order. Yeah. Yeah. I know we did ours. Yeah. We were in the same mindset. We're like, we're young. That's a later problem. We don't need to worry about that. And then my mother-in-law found out we didn't have a will, and she bought one for us. Like it was at a silent auction, and she saw there was an attorney offering a will. And so she outbid everyone, got it, gave us the paperwork. It was like, you call this attorney and you set up your will. And so we're very grateful for that she had the foresight to see you need this.
So other God moments, we had a nurse that I'm still in contact with in the ICU, and he was an atheist, and he had just come to Christ a few years prior. And so we had a lot of amazing conversations within that ICU room. And when he was in rehab, we had a gal who wasn't even his nurse, but she was a friend of a friend. And every time she was on, she would come and she would pray over Shelby. And we ran into each other at one point in time because, again, it was COVID. So I didn't get to visit with many people at all. But she was like, I just want you to know I've been praying over him every single day that I'm here. And he just placed the right people at the right time.
Wow.
In each and every one of the hospitals that we were at. And then after we had gotten home, I had a ring on the doorbell, and it was a gal that I had no idea who she was. And she said she knew my husband was in a bad car accident. He was not doing well, but she was sent there to tell me that my husband's going to be okay, that he it's going to take him a long time to heal, but he's going to be okay. And so that's one of those things that when you said what keeps you going, I remember that lady who just rang my doorbell was one of God's angels and sent her here to give me that news. And one other that I remember offhand was the boys loved to do lemonade stands, and we had taken Daddy in his wheelchair across the busy road to a park, and we were setting up shop for a lemonade stand, and a guy pulled up and he just was looking at us funny, each one of us, and he said, "All of these are yours?" And I was like, "Yep, they're all my boys, and this is my husband." And he was like, "And you take care of all of this?" And I said, "Yep, I do." And he said, "Well, there's something I need to do for you." And I was like, "Just pray for us. We'll be okay."
Yeah.
Just pray. And he took out $100 bill and he handed it to me. And he gave me his card and he said, "I'm going to take care of you. Just give me a call." And I never did, but I felt like that was God's way of telling me, we've always struggled with finances, but that was his way of telling me that financially we're going to be okay.
Wow. That's amazing. Now I have some rapid fire questions for you if you're game for it, if you're ready. What's your favorite book to recommend?
Okay. It's #but God. So But God by Jeremy Freeman. I don't want it to start playing. It's the power of hope when catastrophe crashes in. His son was in a car accident and The two of them are motivational speakers, and they go around the country sharing but God. And it's a really great story, and they're a really great follow on social media as well.
Nice. Who inspires you?
Well, besides the obvious of my husband, my mom.
Mhm. Mhm.
She is one of 12
Nice.
children. Her dad passed away when she was very young. My grandma too, I guess. My grandma raised all of them. Just gone through a lot. My nephew passed away when he was 11. Lots of
Yeah.
family stuff. And so she just always has that faith as well, and hardworking.
Okay.
She and my dad have had their own business for many, many years. And
Mm.
that's not easy, working as a couple together for 35 years and still staying together.
Yeah. I know I couldn't do that. I always say I could have
So
a happy
true.
marriage or I could have a
So true.
business. I could not combine the
Yeah.
two. Yeah.
Mm.
Amazing. Who's a celebrity you'd like to have dinner
Celebrity
with,
I'd
dead or
like to have
alive? Yeah.
I knew you asked these questions too, and I was like, she's not going to ask me that. She's going to ask me something different. Let's say Michael J. Fox. He's gone through so much, and yeah, he's done some amazing things.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the final one, what is your go-to karaoke song?
To karaoke. There's so many. It was a lot of drunken bar times. Let's say Sweet Home Alabama. Thanks.
Oh, good choice. Fun. That's a fun one. Yeah. And now Shannon Boyer was the last guest on the show, and she passed along this question for the next guest, which is you. And what she says is, what's the number one thing you notice with people who take your advice and your guidance and have success and those who do not?
Those who take my advice are going to be those who have broken through and become the victor, and those who do not are going to sit in the victim mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's a question that you would like to ask for the next guest without knowing who they are?
I think I'm like in the gratitude space. And what is one thing that you feel you have taken for granted? Thanks.
Good one. Good question. Yeah. Any final words you want to leave the audience with?
Don't miss the opportunity, no matter how small, whether it's a goodnight kiss or an I love you, because you never know when your last one's going to be.
Great final words. Erika's story is such a powerful reminder that success isn't always about climbing higher. It's about rising stronger. It's about reclaiming who you are, even when life brings you to your knees. If this conversation spoke to you, I encourage you to check out Erika's podcast, The Real Lives of TBI Wives. I'll link it in the show notes. And if you've been sitting on your own podcast idea, maybe this is your sign to get started. The 5-day Launch Your Podcast Challenge is how Erika got started on her podcast, and it might just be your next step too. So here's a little reflection I'd like to leave you with today after today's episode, and that is, where have you lost yourself in service to others? And what would reclaiming your voice look like? Share this episode with someone who's navigating their own healing or their own reinvention. And don't forget to leave a review. It helps to grow this show and reach more people. I'll be back next week with more tools, more stories, and inspiration to help you stay aligned, stay motivated, and keep success in mind. Until next time, bye for now, my friends.